can't talk about dangerous surrender without talking about the person that made it all so real to me. After I had read an article on AIDS in Africa and had surrendered and said, God, I'll be an advocate. I'll be somebody who speaks up for people who can't speak up for themselves. But I just kept studying because I knew nothing. So I just kept reading and watching videos. And after about 6 or 8 months, that just wasn't satisfying. It felt like I wasn't touching anybody. I wasn't personally involved still. So I had the opportunity to go to Mozambique, to Africa, and I took it. I jumped at the chance. First day there, I'm ready to go. Okay, let's meet people who are HIV positive. Show me what it's like. Let me see. Let me see, feel, touch, smell, taste. I've got to get my hands around this. And I began to ask all these questions of the people I was with, and they were so wise. They just kept saying, "You'll see, you'll see." So they took me out, and I thought I was going to be visiting a woman in her home that was HIV positive. And instead we got in this, Land Rover truck and bumped over these really, really bumpy roads and pulled up in next to this grove of trees. And we got out and we start walking, and I'm still expecting that I'm going to see a house. But instead what I see is this huge tree, great big spreading limbs, and a little pile of cloth at the bottom, at the base of this tree. And as I got closer, as I walked closer, I saw that little pile of cloth was on a woman that was emaciated. The custom there in Africa, they offer hospitality. Even if they have nothing, they offer hospitality. Well, this woman under the tree tried to get up to walk towards us, but she couldn't because she was so weak. And she collapsed on the ground, and yet she was determined to get out to where we were. And so she began to crawl toward us on her elbows and on her knees. She began to cover this ground in between us. And she collapsed again. And so her aunt went and picked her up under her arms and carried her over to this piece of plastic and kind of just dumped her on it. And she kind of just gathered herself and sat up and greeted us. I was speechless because my faith had not prepared me in the slightest for talking to a woman dying under a tree. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. I began to, in my franticness, say, God, I don't know how to talk to somebody dying under a tree. And her story was she and her husband were HIV positive. And when the village that they lived in found out that they were positive, they kicked him out. They were afraid of him. They were terrified. And they made him leave. And they had nowhere to go. And she had an aunt in another little village who agreed to help care for them. And so she and her husband, the woman who was HIV positive, she and her HIV positive husband took what little belongings they had to this other village. And they had this little tiny round stick house. But as soon as that village found out that they were HIV positive, that little stick house mysteriously burned to the ground. So that when I met her, she had nothing in this world. She had nothing. She had the clothes on her back. She didn't have a cooking pot. She didn't have anything. Her home was at the base of a tree. And as I sat there wondering what to do, how to respond, what to say, the woman who was with me had done this many times. She showed me how to talk to her and offer her the hope that while this life had been really bad, that there really was hope for another life, that Jesus hadn't forgotten her, that she mattered to him. She set me up for learning how to talk to people around the world in that first moment of being with this woman and not knowing what my faith could say to her. I wanted so much to be able to change it. I wanted to give her something that would make it different, but I realized I had nothing that I could give her. And there were pastors around who were praying for her. And at first, you know what, that was really exciting to me, because as I drove away, I thought to myself, that's so great. There were pastors there. They were with her in those moments of distress. And it took me a couple years actually to realize that they could have done more. That while it was great to have pastors praying for her, to have church members who were standing around her with their arms around her as she was dying, why didn't they take her into their home? I don't have an answer. I know I left her under the tree. I have a picture of her, and she's on the wall in my office. Her name is Joana. And Joana gave AIDS a face to me. It was no longer statistics. It's a woman with a story. It's so amazing to me when I think about this. That destitute woman who died under a tree, died of AIDS, died alone, died rejected, died uncared for. She could never have imagined in her wildest dreams that she would be known around the world. But every time I speak to people, Joana is mentioned. Joana is a representative of all the other people that we can help. And what I learned from being with Joana is a compelling passion and urgency that gets me out of bed every day, that moves me into this world in such a way that I say, no more Joanas on my watch. There's more to be done.